Alright, so I've been playing Overwatch a lot lately, and you know what? This game is pretty fun. And that's a little bit odd for me because usually I don't like competitive games. So I started to think about why Overwatch was fun when I find games like League of Legends extremely frustrating. Now I am going to compare Overwatch to League a lot, but what I'm saying could probably be applied to many competitive games. Let's start on the surface. Overwatch is a very good looking game. The stylized graphics and colors give it sort of a lighter atmosphere. In more realistic gritty shooters, you're going to feel a bit more oppressed. Usually games like that have a general color scheme of browns and grays, but Overwatch is extremely colorful and bright and cheery, even though you're blowing people up. And by avoiding hyper-realistic graphics, the game can run well on even low-end PCs. I don't know how other people feel, but when a game is slowed down or is laggy or choppy, I can't play it. If I start dropping below about 30 frames per second, it feels like a chore. So by having the game optimized for low-end PCs, Blizzard has made this game very accessible and fun for everyone. So getting into a little more depth, there are a lot of emotions associated with competitive gaming, usually negative, but I feel that Overwatch minimizes these emotions in a lot of ways. Now when you die in any game, you're going to feel a little bit frustrated, that's normal. You might be upset with yourself for making a bad decision, or you might be upset with your team for not supporting you, or if you feel like your death was their fault in some way. And there's really no way to avoid that frustration. The problem for me with games like League of Legends is that on top of that frustration from dying, you feel all sorts of other negative emotions too. At least in the early game, the fights in League are usually 1-on-1 or 2-on-2. That means that when you die, it's usually because the other person outplayed you. It's not because they had better items or because you were outnumbered. They outplayed you in a 1-on-1 match. It's a blow to your pride and self-confidence to die in situations like that. In Overwatch, it's a team effort from the very start. It's very rare to have a 1-on-1 battle unless you're Genji or someone. So usually you don't feel like a shit player when you die. Dying is kind of unavoidable sometimes, especially with some of the ridiculous ultimates people have. In a lot of competitive games, there's a pretty steep penalty for dying. In games like Counter-Strike, it might be that you are gone for a round and can't help your team. That's even worse in League because when you die, your enemy gets gold to buy better items. When you die early in a game of League, it puts your opponent so far ahead of you. I know that whenever I die in the first few minutes of a game, I just want to give up. I'm completely hopeless because I know that my lane opponent is going to dominate me until at least the mid-game. When I die early once, it usually means I'm going to die 2 or 3 more times in the laning phase. So I feel completely hopeless. In Overwatch, your opponent really doesn't get anything from killing you. They get a little bit of their ultimate charge, but it's not that big of a deal. And with how often people die, you don't really feel like you're just going to lose now because you died once in the first few minutes. On top of that, you get back into the game really quickly. The death timer in League is something like 30 seconds, but in Overwatch it's more like 10. When you're already feeling those negative emotions, not being able to play and get back into the action is just a cauldron to brew that rage. And finally, the short game times. In Overwatch, games are about 10 minutes. If you're losing horribly, you know the longest you have to put up with it is another 10 minutes. In League, if you die 2 or 3 times in the first 10 minutes of the game, I know I have to suffer through 20, 30, sometimes 40 minutes more of that game. And during that time, depending on what character I'm playing, I can't do anything. Sometimes I feel like the team would be better if I just left and made it a 4-on-5. I mean, I'm not contributing anything, and me being outside of the base is just a way for the enemy team to farm more gold. And that is an absolutely miserable feeling. So Overwatch does a lot to minimize these negative emotions. They don't have that compounding effect like with other games. Another reason why the game is fun is because as the game goes on, it becomes easier for the losing team to fight back. Basically in every mode except King of the Hill, as the objective moves forward, it's closer to the defender's spawn point and further from the attackers. Meaning if you're losing as a defender, it's that much easier to get back into the game and defend the objective. If you're losing as an attacker, same thing, it's that much easier to get back. The maps are really well designed in this aspect to make it so that when one team is winning, it's actually harder to push forward to victory. Overwatch just has a lot of things that make you feel good. One is that it doesn't show your KDR. It shows your eliminations at the end of the match. That's good because I only see the good things that I've done. On top of that, assists also count as eliminations, so you get this inflated score and it makes you feel good. I mean, I've had games where I probably got 0 kills myself, but I was playing Tracer, just running around behind enemy lines, putting damage on everyone constantly, so I came out of it with like 30 eliminations. That feels good. There's also the commendations and play of the game, and these things are meant to make you feel good. The game also feels rewarding to play. There is a level up system, and while it's mostly arbitrary, just the idea of earning something from playing the game makes you feel good and like you want to play more. Now as far as I know, all you get from leveling up is loot boxes, which have skins or various other cosmetics in them. But that in itself is worth trying to level up for. There have been plenty of times where I just wanted to play that one more game so I could finish off a level and get another loot box. It makes you feel like you're achieving something instead of wasting your life playing video games. And finally, just the way the game is structured. The ability to switch between characters adds a lot of fun to the game. If you're doing poorly on one character, just switch to another. In something like League, if you pick a character and someone picks someone to counter you, you're just screwed. But in Overwatch, you can just switch who you're playing. Not only that, but since the playstyles are so different for each character, there's bound to be someone who you're just naturally good with, and someone you can just switch to when you're feeling kind of shitty and just want to kick some ass. And then there's the fact that those diverse playstyles are designed to be fun. Even though I hate the idea of Tracer on paper because I hate squishy characters, she's the most fun character to play for me. You just zip around poking people and being annoying. You can pretty much escape from anyone. Or D.Va. The playstyle of that character is to just charge into the enemy team and ram your face into them. How fun is that? There aren't a lot of characters with crowd control, and crowd control is the #1 anti-fun thing. So you don't have to be worried about being stun-locked. The only really annoying characters to play against are Mei or McCree, and once again, you die so easily that even being stunned or frozen and killed isn't really that big of a deal. It's nothing like in World of Warcraft, for example, where it's supposed to be harder to die, but there are so many stuns and other forms of crowd control in PvP that you can just be completely locked down for 10 seconds and annihilated without being able to do anything. You know, I play games to play the game, not just sit and watch my character die. So those are my thoughts on why Overwatch is such a fun game. If you feel like I missed anything, tell me in the comments. Oh, and yeah, I know I'm pretty terrible at the game. Anyway, I'm Cothrix, and you have a wonderful day.